George Walther, the power of positive communication, compelling leadership, customer loyalty, profitable relationships.
Now, if you've read any of my books or seen me speak before, you know this is a bit of a departure. I'm a business guy. I like formulas. What 7 things can you do to be more effective on the phone? What are 13 techniques to give better customer service? What are 50 everyday phrases that you can expunge from your vocabulary and replace with more powerful, more positive replacements? I like things that way. So when I was asked to speak on this topic of authenticity, I got right to work. I thought, okay, I'm going to come up with, let's see, what are the 17 secret techniques to make people think you're authentic? They don't exist. You can't do it. You can't fake authenticity.
Call on George Walther as your speaker to develop more compelling leadership and communication skills, to gain more cooperation from colleagues and customers, to build customer loyalty and develop more profitable relationships, to speak more positively and create delighted customers. Learn about George Walther's credentials and track record, and discover why George is so highly acclaimed in the marketplace. This preview program lets you go directly to the sections you care about most. Gut-level leadership. How to develop compelling leadership and communication skills by hearing between the lines and cultivating your gut instincts.
What about you? Don't you have experiences where you meet people and for some reason you immediately get the sense that that person is just not trustworthy? Have you not had the experience of right away thinking, the stories don't quite ring true? I don't think this person is telling me the full story. It's easy to dismiss it and say, well, I'm just getting some creepy vibes from that person. It's not creepy vibes. In fact, the phenomenon is called cue leakage. Even a very accomplished liar, a truly deceptive person, cannot conceal certain cues that your brain picks up on. You're monitoring their rate of blinking. You're monitoring the moisture on their face. You're monitoring the hesitation in their voice. It's not just a creepy feeling. You're taking in a vast amount of information. The lesson that I learned is that whether you understand where the signals are coming from or not, whether you understand the hows and the whys, when your voice speaks to you, you ignore it at great peril. We don't have to understand things. We don't have to be sure of the hows and the whys. We have to listen for the authenticity of those messages.
Power talking. What you say is what you get. How to project the responsible, decisive, high-integrity image that generates maximum cooperation with customers and colleagues.
The fourth trait of power talkers is that they accept responsibility. It's so tempting to say, what's wrong with my leadership team? Why can't they get to meetings on time? Power talkers bring it back and say, given that my team has a tendency to be a little late, I'm going to find a better way to convey the need for punctuality here. Fourth trait of power talkers, they accept responsibility. And they're also really good at building cooperation. Sometimes it's specifically in the area of sales, but for the most part, building cooperation is getting people to see your side while you see their side and jointly come together. The word disagree, as soon as you say, I disagree, to one of the members of your team or an outside investor or a colleague that you're working with, as soon as you say, I disagree, what they hear is, you're wrong, you stupid fool. My point of view is more valid than yours. And then you're in an argument. So power talkers, instead of saying, I disagree, say, I understand what you're saying, and at the same time, here's another point of view to consider. Sixth trait of power talkers is that they speak decisively. And you know that you want members on your team who do not say, I think I should probably be able to perhaps maybe get that completed by around about Thursday. You want people who speak definitely, definitively about exactly what they're going to accomplish. And while each of these traits is important, and there are many examples of why they are important, this next one, I got to be honest with you, to me, to be perfectly truthful about this, candidly speaking, okay, what are you thinking right now? What is like to tell you the truth? It's like, this is not my normal behavior. Everything up until now has not been the truth. The seventh trait of power talkers is that they tell the truth. They don't use the habitual throwaway phrases that people so often do. Well, to be honest with you, frankly speaking, to tell you the truth, let me level with you, which signals that you aren't always that way. And in this case, there is no phrase or word substitute. As entrepreneurs, as the leaders of our organizations, in dealing with the investor community, with our customers, and certainly with our colleagues here at YEO, we've got to live the truth in every single thing we do. There is no phrase you can use that tells the other person, hey, I'm honest.
Upside down selling and serving. How to maximize profits by focusing on customer retention and fostering long-term loyalty.
I wrote a book called Upside Down Marketing. It's titled that way because of this. The normal order of priorities in business is to say, job one, the most important job, is to bring in business. Particularly in difficult times like this, we've got to get new customers. That's job one. Of course, it's the job that has the least chance of being successful. It's the job that costs the most. It's the job that contributes the least to our bottom line profits. But it's the most important. Job two. Job two is keeping customers happy over the long haul. Oh, yeah, that's the call center's job. Dealing with those ongoing issues, we don't really make any money doing that. Job three. Complaints? Oh, God, no, I don't want to talk to those upset people. While the first job is exciting and thrilling, but not profitable, and the second job is kind of boring and routine, but more profitable, the third job, which is downright distasteful and nobody wants to do it, is the most profitable job of all. So thus the idea of upside down marketing is to say, when we want to be leaders within our organizations, to say how can we generate maximum profits, particularly in difficult, challenging times, the best thing we can do is turn those resources upside down. I use a conveyor belt analogy. I feel that whether you are in a customer service situation, whether you're with the government, whether you're in a sales atmosphere, making outbound or receiving inbound calls, what really matters is your conveyor belt. That cost of getting them up, that investment we've already made, that acquisition cost, that's a sunk cost. That cost is amortized over all future transactions so that those future cash flows are much more heavily profit-laden than the original cash flows. So your second priority would be to say, how can I get people to stay with us? How can I ensure their long-term loyalty? The lowest priority is to go get new customers, which is not to say we shouldn't. It's simply to say, if you are in my shoes, if we are consultants together, and we go to your organization or any organization and look at that conveyor belt and say, we make money when people are on the belt. And as long as they're on the belt, they keep contributing not just money, but money that becomes increasingly profitable. But there aren't enough people on the belt. What shall we do? They're falling off. What shall we do? Only an extremely short-term thinker would say, gee, what we should do is get more people up on the belt to replace those who are falling off. Those who are thinking effectiveness rather than efficiency would say, let me go to this end of the belt and see who's falling off. Why? How can I prevent them from falling off? How can I refresh and renew their loyalty? And then, how can I make sure that those who are already on the belt will remain over the long haul? The good news is that the worse our economy is, the more important customer loyalty becomes. We all know that. Loyalty, though, is driven by relatively inexpensive factors. What makes for customers saying really good things about us really doesn't cost a lot of money. What will prevail in the long haul is good, clear, sound, strategic thinking. Long-term success goes to those of us who keep in balance efficiency and effectiveness. And as similar as those words may appear, of course, their meanings are completely different. I always thank Peter Drucker, probably our most quoted management guru on the planet, for reminding us that as similar as the words are, they mean completely different things. Efficiency is doing things right. Effectiveness is doing right things.
Positive phrasing, the language of great sales and service, how to delight your customers while motivating yourself and your organization.
How many people here make several phone calls a day? Yeah, several. So then nonverbal probably wouldn't really apply on a phone? Yes, it does. Absolutely. What's going on with your nonverbal positioning, your body posture, comes through in your voice. I mean, just try saying, "You're the worst customer I've ever talked with. What a pain it is to deal with you." Or, "Oh, I'm so happy you called. It's a thrill to help you." What's going on with your face, which of course is part of your nonverbal component, carries right through to your tone of voice, and that tone of voice is what people use to determine what they think your attitude is. You can say, "Tell me all about the claim situation you're facing here. I really want to hear more." Or you can say, "Tell me all about the claim situation. I really want to hear more." The words are the same. The tone of voice, though, conveys a completely different attitude. And you also pay attention to the specific word choice. It's not the facts you state so much as it is the way you phrase those statements, what is going on with your body while you do it, and how you come across what your tone of voice is. How many people here believe in that famous adage, actions speak louder than words? Again, virtually every hand raised. And actions are definitely very important. And yet, don't you know people who are like, "I'm Bob. I'm doing everything perfectly, right? I've got the perfect walk of authority. I've got the handshake, exactly the right firmness. My eye contact is perfect, isn't it? I'm doing everything just right." And yet, you're thinking, "What a dork. This is an act. He's full, he's empty. It's just an act. It's just a hollow shell." What you think about is important, but on its own, that's not going to cut it. Any more than your actions on their own will cut it. Any more than your words on their own will determine the future success for yourself or this organization. The first time GE had me come in to work with them, I sat beside this woman, Miss Cooley, and I thought, okay, let me see. She is singled out as somebody who's really good. Let me just see, what is it that Miss Cooley does that's so good? And there must be times when you feel weary with your work and that it seems a little boring. Well, your work is nothing compared to Miss Cooley, because all she did is talk with primarily dumb consumers all day long, call after call. How long will that light bulb last? Does the refrigerator open on the left side or on the right side? My kids are making water balloons. How do I get them out of the automatic ice maker? What I noticed is that Miss Cooley would never say, "Oh, you'd like to know where your nearest dealer is? If you give me your zip code, I'll have to look that up." She would say, "Oh, you want to know the zip code of your nearest dealer? If you give me the code, please, I'll be happy to look that up." She would never say, "Oh, you want the part number for that soap dispenser cup? Just a minute, I'll have to check our reference manual." She would say, "Oh, the number for that soap dispenser cup? I'll be glad to check our reference manual." So here's my question for you. Miss Cooley made the decision that she would not say, "I'll have to." and that she would always find a more positive replacement. She'd say, I'll be glad to, I'll be happy to, I'd like to. Would it make a difference to you, if you were the consumer calling Miss Cooley, would it make a difference to you if you heard her say, I'll be happy to look that up instead of I'll have to look that up? I'll be glad to call you back instead of I'll have to call you back. Would you notice? Yes. What about Miss Cooley? Now, I watched her. I timed her. What I noticed is that Miss Cooley handled, on average, 12 calls in an hour. She worked an 8-hour shift, and in the average call, she handled 3 requests for information. So 12 times 3 times 8, 288 times a day. What does it do to Miss Cooley if she hears herself 288 times saying, I'll have to look that up, I'll have to check on that, I'll have to get the part number, I'll have to check with technical support, I don't want to, I don't like my job, I hate customers, this is a burden. Versus, I'll be happy to check on that, I'd like to get our technical people working on it, I'll be glad to check the reference manual, I'd like to call you back. She's giving herself a little boost every time. It's as simple as that. You can change the image that we're projecting to our policyholders, to the world in general, and to everybody you interact with by consciously deciding that there are certain phrases that everybody says all the time that you are not going to say, like getting rid of I'll have to and consistently saying instead, I'll be glad to.
About George Walther. George Walther. Over 30 years of experience in promoting more powerful communication skills. In the 1970s, George earned his MBA at UCLA and went on to hold various sales and marketing positions. In the 1980s, George authored the widely acclaimed Phone Power series, followed by Power Talking, also published around the world in many languages. In the 1990s, George showed businesses how to build more profitable customer relationships with his third book, Upside Down Marketing. George Walther focused on harnessing the power of communication for leadership, sales, and service excellence. Applause for George Walther. George Walther, inducted as a lifetime member of the Speakers Hall of Fame and a recipient of the Certified Speaking Professional designation. An expert at bringing efficient and effective communication skills to corporations and associations around the globe. A consummate professional who hits the mark every time.
Thank you.
To check George Walther's availability, please contact the provider of this preview program.